Howdy. So you guys know me. I play mobile games. I go on and off between certain particular ones every now and again, and whenever that I do, I make a video about it just to go ahead and talk to you guys about it. Mostly because if anybody happens to want to test it that is in my audience, that means that I gain friendos. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The mobile game on the chopping block this time is going to be Counterside. This is something that my German friends let me know and was aware of before I was and was asking me about it, and then it popped into my attention and I realized that it actually just, released on, I want to say, the 24th or 25th or something of last month. And I have been playing it pretty excessively for the past couple of days, and let's go ahead and actually talk about the fucking game then now, shall we? So to start, I'm going to go ahead and preface this by saying I have not been paying attention to the story whatsoever, even in the tiniest bit in this game. Luckily, it tracks all of that stuff so that you can rewatch the cutscenes whenever that you damn well wish to, so I can always revisit it later, but these games have a lot of tendencies to just have excessive dialogue and cutscenes about stuff, and I don't have the time in my day to just read dialogue and text in between every single individual story segment and whatnot that I wind up doing throughout the game. I'm sorry, but I just don't care enough about it. But effectively, the plot line of this game is that you are the manager of insert name of company here, and you are to hire people into your organization so that you can defeat corrupted objects, or I believe that's specifically what the enemies in this game are called and whatnot, so you just hire your soldiers to go ahead and cut them down and all that fun stuff. It really is a very generic, hits all of the checkboxes for generic mobile game plot, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure that there are some subtle differences here and there and some things that make it unique from the remainder of the pot of mobile games and gacha games that do all the same things. So I don't want to completely reduce everything that there is in the plotline and the storyline for those who enjoy it, because I simply do not know enough about it. Now, the one thing that I do know very much about, because I've spent the most time trying to understand it, are the mechanical bits of the games, and this is where most of everything about what I'm talking about is going to really fall under, is the mechanical bit. This is a video game, after all, okay? You guys want to know how the video game works. You want to play the video game. You want to learn the video game. Be challenged by the video game. Become the video game. And I am here to deliver all of that information for you. So first off, the thing that really clicked with me and what allowed me to stick with it and get really into it is that there's a lot of similarity here with Arknights and Girls Frontline to an extent. I mean, you can say this about everything and just draw similarities though, but in particular, I am talking about the cost for dropping units down and basically almost the tower defense-like combat system that is involved with this game. Now, this is an extremely base level reduction of what is going on under the hood here, but bear with me for a moment. In Counterside, there are generally two aspects when it comes to anything that you're actually controlling for the gameplay side of things. You have a ship, which is more or less your headquarters, your home base, your construction yard if you're somebody who is like an old Command & Conquer gamer. The ship is your lifeblood, your heart, if you will. You do not let this thing get destroyed under any circumstances. This is what you are defending for the tower defense bit of the game. And then there are the actual units within the game. So you go ahead and you summon these for the cost that you see that generates at the bottom left of the screen. You drop them onto the screen and they go from left to right. And to my knowledge, that's really all that you need to know. Like, all units do that. They have different specific nuances between the actual mechanics on how this works, but that is how it works. They go from left to right to the other side of the screen, and you want to overrun and beat your opponent by destroying the big baddie that is on the right side of the screen, or by eliminating all of the enemies off of the screen. Because some of these just have a wave-based swarm game mode where you just have to kill everything. That is everything at a base level, but let's go a little bit more specific about things. So obviously, there are many different types of units in the game that you want to have around for different particular purposes. Everything falls under generally 4 classes. There are others, but they don't necessarily matter in terms of what I am going to refer to as the de facto rock, paper, scissors version of gameplay that you see in a lot of mobile games. In the top right corner of the screen, you'll realize that there are 4 different icons that have arrows pointing to each other that indicate that they are strong against that unit. Defenders are strong against snipers, snipers are strong against strikers, strikers are strong against rangers, and rangers are strong against defenders. And this is how the core gameplay loop is really designed around how you make your squads and your teams and all those other aspects. Certain units can attack sky units, certain units can attack those that are only on the ground, others can attack either or. Some have very particular skills that allow them to kind of flip-flop, and it changes their target priority on these different things. The game is surprisingly in-depth with what every unit can do, and it would behoove you to pay attention to all of the skills across all units, not just particularly all of the ones that have the highest rarities, because they will help you tremendously. One thing that was really good about Arknights that you will see in this game as well is the fact that you have like a lower cost on your units when you use lower rarities, so it'll actually help you tremendously to use those lower rarity units for that purpose, if nothing else. On top of class archetypes, they also fall under unit archetypes as well. What I mean by this is they fall under one of three main groups, which is counter, soldier, or mech units, and they will definitely tell you what each of these do if you click on the different classifications on the top left of any unit card, and you can read these individually. But in summary, counter is what the vast majority of people are going to be using for units in this game, because this is literally just all of your waifus right here. This is all like the anime-looking people that just beat absolute ass and just are badasses. They're effectively heroes in terms of the unit game. They have a higher cost than everything else for the most part, but they also just have way better stats than the rest of them, and this will form the majority of your teams. Soldiers, on the other hand, have a lower cost, but they typically come out in, well, several duplicates of that unit, or duplicates of another type of unit. Basically, they pop out in, like, squads. Think, like, again, Command & Conquer style games where you can summon a rifle squad, and you'll see, like, 5 individual little men that you have with assault rifles and stuff. It's very similar to that, but they also have lower stats to kind of counterbalance this. However, when you think about it, at the end of the day, now you have 3 assault rifles rather than just one unit that is attacking one person with one assault rifle. So there are tangible benefits here for having several units that you can drop out for the low cost of 2 rather than 3 for a single counter unit. And this is where that kind of balance falls into play here with the different team compositions. Finally, the one that I have the least practice with, which would be mechs. The game tells you that they react really quickly to the enemy units. I don't know what that means, if that means that they just have a faster response time to being able to get up to where they need to be on the field, or whatever the case is with it though, but mech units are just really particular and specific. I'm sure that they have really good uses with them, but versus them having similar costs to a lot of the counter units that I use, I haven't found a really good use for many mechs, other than to tie them in combination with a particular ship that has abilities that regenerate mech units, which, by the way, going back to ships, they also have abilities that you can drop that I'm sure you guys have been noticing this whole entire time, like shooting freaking laser beams across the screen. It's fucking awesome. Anyway, so this about covers the main gameplay loop for you right here mechanically. That's really, there's a lot more that I could talk about here, but that's not, I don't want the whole video to be that kind of shit. So we're going to go ahead and just talk about some other things with it as well that you might be wondering about if you're considering trying to get into the game. And I think the first thing that we should go over is the gacha bit, because this is obviously fucking contentious shit with everybody. This is just the nature of these games. But let's go ahead and take a look at it really quickly. So 2 things to start out with. Number 1, I think that my account has been extraordinarily lucky on all of the different pulls that I have gotten. However, that being said, it should also be a point to make as well that this game kind of expects you to have duplicates of the different units that you have within the game. Now, you can upgrade them with universal materials without having duplicates, but the duplicates make it infinitely fucking easier for you. So this is going to be a thing that you will notice when you start to pull very early in the game and you start to, like, you have 15 of a particular normal rarity unit. That is a thing that will happen very frequently, and that is a thing that you are going to need to keep note of what you need it for, because you will be breaking them down to be able to increase their maximum level. So everything caps off at level 100, and then you can put in duplicates of itself to kind of reinforce that unit to increase the cap sequentially to 102, 104, etc., to I think 110. 110. but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't spent enough time with the game. I'm not even close to that level right now. I don't even think that I have a level 60 unit as we speak, so take that one how you will. But as I said, yes, I have been very lucky with this account. I pretty much have every single banner pull right now, all of the SSR units that were available, at least before today, because they did add in another banner or two, but other than that, yeah, I pretty much pulled everything, including the very special Hild unit down at the bottom, and all that fun shit, so yeah, I've been very lucky on the unique pulls, but the only thing is you need to upgrade their star rating, like I said, by using those individual materials that you can, or with duplicates, which most people seem to recommend saving the duplicates for when you're doing the promotions in their maximum level, when they're like SR or above for rarity. I really don't know. You're gonna have to look up somewhere else that's not fucking me to be able to talk about the best way to burn your duplicates, but that's what I'm going with, and I'm gonna stick with that. I'm saving all of my SRs and above for when I need to increase their level cap maximum. But that's generally how this game works when it comes to unit pulling. You have several different rarities, which is normal, rare, SR, which I imagine is like super rare, and then super, super rare, whatever the fuck that... I don't know what SSR would be. Super secret rare we're gonna go with. There we go. Done. You've heard that one here. But anyway, those are the 4 different unit rarities that you have. They have a maximum star ranking within them that you gain from burning these cores, which will be decided depending on whether or not that they are a counter, a mech, or a soldier type unit. There's different colors for those cores, and then you increase their star rating until they completely max out their stars, and then you need their duplicates or a really particular material type to increase their level maximum. And that is how the upgrade system works there. There is also a skill upgrading system that you have that increases all of the different skills that they have and their inherent stats. Like, some of them can give them a 5% bonus to attack speed, or 5% bonus to your basic attack damage is like the primary one if you upgrade their primary skills. Cooldown reduction, etc. There's a lot of things that you need to look at in terms of the upgrade system there. And then, of course, there are equipments that you need to get, which is... This is usually the bane of my fucking existence when it comes to these games, because they love to throw a billion different pieces of equipment at you in gacha games and tell you, alright, cool, now you need to go ahead and enhance them by burning older pieces, but they're very specific and you want to hold on to certain ones, and you can't just lock and unlock certain things because you have to manage 450 pieces of fucking equipment at once across 200 units, and it just becomes a shit show trying to ever do these in mobile games, and I hate it. It's why I loved the simplicity of Girls Frontline when it came to the equipment systems in it, because they just had a very, very particular set of stats that was on every piece of equipment in the game, and you just needed to go ahead and maximize how much that you were getting from it by calibrating them in Girls Frontline. It was just so fucking simple, you know what I mean? So, yeah, you didn't have all of this, like, random number generation shit that you needed to do to be able to... It's reminding me of Genshin Impact all over again with the artifacts. Please don't bring me back to that PTSD nightmare all over again. But that is what you have to do here. I will say it's quite intuitive, though, because of the fact that they have all of these different set bonuses, so generally, I doubt that it's really going to matter if you absolutely perfectly min-max every piece of equipment that you have in this game. But if you have the set bonuses that you want for each unit, then it does give you a nice little bonus of whatever the hell that you want to throw in that character. Like, you can do crit bonus and attack bonus for anything that's just a hard attacker. And then there you go. Boom. Your defenders, you can increase their defense by 20%, or their HP by 10%, and etc., etc., etc. So, I like the idea of set bonuses on equipment for this reasoning as well, and you don't get your 4th equipment slot until you max out their star rating, so yet another reason to hard focus on one particular unit if you really like them. So, there you go. If you enjoy your waifu, then perfect. She's going to be fucking geared to the nines. I guess the only other thing that I have left to talk about here would be the content of the game, and then we'll just go ahead and wrap up with a pros and cons section, as well as a conclusion, and then that'll be everything that I want to talk about for Counterside. So, content. Well, let's start with the storyline, because that is obviously a thing that you'll have to do in the game. In a lot of these mobile games, there's usually a storyline segment that you do that unlocks content generally for the game, and that's no different here. The first chapter of the game is basically your little warm-up tutorial, and then once you clear the first chapter of the game, everything in the game becomes available to you for the most part. There are some very specific things that you have to unlock in later chapters, but that's not super duper unbelievably relevant, really, to be honest with you. You just start to unlock some smaller portions of the game as you continue with the story. But the first chapter will allow you to do all of the content within the operations section, I believe, with the exception of one tab. I don't remember, it's been a minute. But either way, point of the matter here is that I am happy to tell you guys that all of the content within that operations tab that you unlock literally all in one fucking chunk when you clear the first chapter, it all seems to have its place on what it does and the things that you get from it. It takes a little bit to understand what you're getting from where, and how to manage your resources and where to go for them, and what is required to be able to gain those resources and whatnot, but it does have a very, very understandable requirement for these things, and you'll know where to go in a relatively short period of time, especially if you're used to this in mobile games. So, thank God for that. It seemed incredibly nebulous at first, but then, like, I started to understand it almost immediately once I started to kind of look at things. There is also a world map segment where you can unlock different nodes across the map the higher that your account level increases, and then you can assign certain units to work at a desk in that area. And they can also do different expeditions depending on what missions are available. You can assign them to do operations in the meantime while you play the game or while you are offline. They will always progress the time as they're doing so, and then give you other goodies in the meantime. Another system that is in infinitely so many other mobile games as well, but they are still prevalent in this game. And as you do them, you will unlock raids. Raiding is pretty fucking cool in this game. It is how you can get you and all of your fucking friends to just beat up one massive big bad and just see how much damage that you can do to the damn thing, and then you gain rewards once the raid is over. Again, another system that will sound very similar to you if you've played enough mobile games by this point, but raids are a thing in the game. Diving is another thing in the game through World Map that you can also do, where you can reset your progress after X amount of time going through those dives, and you can just see how deep that you go in it. It just gets progressively harder and harder and harder the lower the level that you go into for a particular currency that you can spend. I think it's specifically on like ship upgrades that you use all of your dive materials on, so there's that. There are raid tokens for gear and all that other stuff. And again, all the operations that I had mentioned before give you various other materials that you need for the different upgrades and the different skill bonuses and all this other stuff. You'll start to understand it in time as you look at it. I don't think that it is overtly complicated compared to many other mobile games that I have played. It all seems to have a place with where you go, and that is, thank God for that. Oh, and I almost forgot, there is PvP in this game. Now, I will be blunt with you guys, I do not like forced PvP in these games, and it's not exactly 100% forced, but there is a currency that you gain out of PvP that allows you to get your hands on some pretty gnarly and awesome tier 6 gear with relative ease, I would say, just by diving into the PvP and just throwing yourself at people. I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of PvP in general with how gacha games work, due to the nature that they appeal to, obviously, fucking whales and people who throw money at the screen. You are never going to win in a PvP climbing situation with ranking against somebody who just has more money and or more time than you do. It just will not work. Luckily, though, you still gain all of the actual currency from PvP, even if you lose 6 times in a fucking row. So, you only gain maybe, I think it's like 150% of the currency. It's like 40 or 50 or something on a loss, and then you gain 75 on a win, and then you also climb in rank. So it's not super bad. I don't think that the PvP is overtly terrible versus the general gacha standard. I would even argue that it's above average. It seems pretty well balanced, given the nature of how PvP in these games can go. I have seen infinitely so much worse with PvP in gacha games before, so I think that there is definitely a degree of skill and a lot of enjoyment that can be had from the people who do enjoy PvP. It's just not for me. I don't think that fucking gacha games like this really work and jive well with PvP, because you will never be able to reach the top versus somebody who plays the game every day and drops hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars into it. You will never reach that level, I'm sorry, unless you just dump all of your time into the game and it becomes a full-time job by that point. The odds are not working in your favor I almost forgot to mention, there's another game mode type in this as well. I can't remember what it's called specifically, but I want to say that it's a battlefield. Basically, you use your ship, and then you can build squads out of those individual ships that allow you to have several squads to coordinate, as well as with your friend squads, and you move around in like a tile grid, which I'm a particular fan of, thanks to, again, old Girls Frontline player stuff. This feels very similar to running around on the map with the strategy-based stuff that was in Girls Frontline, so good on you, game, for that one. I'd talk about this in more depth, but we're running out of time here. Let's go ahead and do our pros and cons section, and then we'll move over to our conclusion on what I think about the game, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and get the negative shit out of the way first, and then we'll get back to praising the game. So, starting with the first negative thing, let's go with crashing. So this is something that you will bump into for sure with this game, unless it's just whatever the hell that I have it running off of that's just making it crash, but either way. Crashing has been a little bit of an issue for me with this game versus a lot of other mobile games that I have played on BlueStacks and all that fun stuff. So, it might not happen super duper often. It's weirdly inconsistent with it, but it seems to happen almost entirely predominantly whenever that I go to the main menu screen, which that is a place that you will be frequenting a lot in the game because that is the hub where you go ahead and you select all of the things that you need to fucking do in the game. So I have had this game crash 2 times back to back from that before, and it's a bit of a pain in the ass. And it also crashes mid-run a lot too for me. I don't know, again, it might just be the way that I have my setup for it with the game. The game is newer, so yeah, you can expect some instability, but this is still an objective con with the game regardless when it is crashing like such. And I remember reading a lot of different issues that people were having with the game crashing and regarding with like the server stability itself. So I think that this is something that is not specifically to me based off of that information alone, but we'll have to see how this winds up just dealing with itself over time, and if that gets patched out and all that fun stuff. And then my second con is going to be a little bit pedantic, but to be honest with you, if you look at it this way, if my cons are really nitpicky and pedantic, that means that there are no really big overlying flaws of the game that I can really see, which is more of a boon for the game than a negative. And the pedantic thing that I'm going to be bitching about right here is kind of just that whole first chapter bit that I had mentioned before. You unlock a lot of different places to go, and the game doesn't really talk you through what they are, necessarily. So you have 90 billion different other side content things to do in the game after you beat the first chapter, and you have absolutely no fucking idea which one is more important, what you should focus on. And while that level of freedom can be welcome, it depends on the individual for it. I think that it's just a really weird dichotomy, where the first chapter of the game was just this really nice, smooth, uphill transition of unlocking mechanics in the game, being told that you have basically a dormitory and there's a little room building thing and whatnot, and all the different aspects of the game that you can do, and then suddenly it just throws you out into the fucking wilderness without a paddle suddenly, and when you beat the first chapter, it's incredibly overwhelming. That's gotta be overwhelming for new players that are not like me, who have not really played very many mobile games, where they just have no idea what to focus on. I wouldn't be shocked if people just completely missed a portion of the game that had a resource in it that they needed due to something like this. Luckily, every item in the game, it does tell you where you can obtain it, though, so you can go ahead and just click on it and then go to that little subsegment of the areas and whatnot and figure it out from there. So there is some level of guidance. I can't just completely throw it out in the woods. I just think that it should have had better pacing through Chapter 1 to be able to get those things unlocked to prepare you for all of the content that you can now do. And that is really all that I have to say on the matter. Okay, woo, now we're done with the negative stuff, so let's move over to the positives then, shall we? So the first thing that I'm going to wind up mentioning is that this game is fucking gorgeous, man. Holy shit. I know that we love to make jokes and memes in this day and age over the fact of, ooh, graphics being the primary thing when it comes to video games and whatnot, though, but I'm sorry, good graphics definitely can embellish an experience with an otherwise already pretty solid game as it is. Gameplay should be the primary factor, but holy shit, when you get good graphics on top of good gameplay, it just makes everything feel so much better, my dude. it just looks gorgeous. The skill cut-ins, the way that the character animations work, it's just so fucking smooth of an experience. I have played actual PC games that run worse than this game does, and I know you're thinking, yeah, well, it's a fucking mobile game and it doesn't have very many resources, so it should be running good, but the thing is, it runs a lot better than I would expect out of a free-to-play mobile game, and that says a thing, so this is a definite good thumbs up from me. My second pro that I have to say here that's actually going to lead into the third pro is in the actual combat system itself and the way that that is kind of oriented. So I really appreciate how this game has a particular use for a lot of different units in this game, even if they are lower rarity. There is actually a good, tangible use for earlier units as you start to build your roster and get some of those really higher tier characters out of the way, and it makes a lot of sense to use a lot of them, because some of them just have a really banger ability that you would very easily gloss over, that you don't even think about, and then you look back at it and you're like, oh, okay, holy shit. Like, for example, there's a rare unit called Bombe, that's like this little cat girl with 2 Vector SMGs, who will throw a decoy of herself that runs straight through the enemy front line and all the way to the opposite side of the screen, which can completely open them up for your team to push forward, which is a tremendous help for gaining ground and pushing them back over something that's honestly kind of just a throwaway ability to use. So this is something that's very easy to overlook in the game because, oh, well, she's a lower rarity unit. So I can appreciate how the game does that, and there's just a particular place for them, which leads again into the third pro. Everything seems to be very purposeful with this game. The way that the equipment works, the different things that you need to run to be able to get your resources, the resource management in general. Everything appears to have a place. There are very few systems, if any at all, that I can even think of right now off of the top of my head. I bet I could if you gave me time, but there's not really a system that I can think of in this game where it does not actually have a reason for it to be there, other than maybe the PvP system, but I mean, that's just more of a different type of content for, you know, different strokes for different folks, so to speak. And then that's just like a real big stretch to try to come up with something like that. But like, aside from that, like, I can't really think of anything in the game that I think should just be removed from the game altogether, because all the different types of content in the game have a particular resource that you use to be able to gain a particular item from somewhere else, and it kind of really incentivizes you to go around and get a little piece of here, that, and the other thing to be able to get the things that you need to level up your account and work on different aspects of your account over time. Again, it's just very purposeful with all the different things that are available in the game. So anyway, there we go. So that's the pros and cons sections that we have right there. My conclusion on counter side. I really like this game, guys. I really do. And I know that I said this similar thing, probably. I think I did say the same thing about Epic 7, and then I never stuck with the game after I had made the video about it, though. But I can actually see myself sticking to Counterside for a while after making this video, and I have no intentions of putting it down anytime remotely soon. I want to see what this game is capable of when we start to hit the later end of the game. I'm really excited to see what that looks like. But that being said, it's just, I don't know, the whole entire experience of the game so far, I've just been really enjoying it and trying to master the different stuff and aspects about the game. I feel like I have a very good understanding of how combat works now, though, and my primary thing I'm focusing on now is just leveling up a good roster of units to be able to use to beat other content and have a unit for every situation that I would need for things. And I know that's not super duper feasible, but I like having a tool for every circumstance, you know what I mean? And this game really just appeals to that, in me in particular. So, I think that's a lot of my enjoyment of this game, is just really enjoying trying to figure out where each unit shines, and then figuring out that team comp from there. So right now I'm just setting the stage to get those units up and work on them over time. But that's going to wrap up the video right here then, guys, so hope you enjoyed that little bit of a rant. That is everything that I wanted to say about this game. So, take it easy, and if any of you actually play the game and are looking for my account and stuff like that, I don't know if I had actually popped it up on screen for a moment, but it's just RPG Fox altogether. Not the RPG Fox, just RPG Fox. You can find me on there. I'm using Constantine as my picture, the the dark dude with fucking really long hair. I can say that I'm black, but yeah, the fucking dark-skinned guy that has the Bible and the sword in the other hand and whatnot. He's just a badass tank. So, that is it. I will see you guys later on. Have fun if you enjoy, and if you pick up Counterside, that is, I hope you enjoy it. So, that is the video. Peace.